I was telling your team over there, I am the happiest person in this room because I'm not up there.
Yeah,
so
it's been 3 years of being
you will not,
right?
you will, yeah. I've been waiting 3 years for this kind of stuff right now. So I chairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this again, but I mean, we can probably try and find something. I don't know how we're going to do this kind of setup.
I did like this, but it's happening.
So I think like you could probably fit some more like around this area here probably. Not that we want to keep you out then, but like what is Joey's chairs over there? Okay, well, I mean, we could also pull chairs from like around, I guess. You know, I don't know how many. How many chairs do you guys need to now, here's the question. We can get people to sit on the ground and running around. I know that's not ideal, but we can say, hey, can we make cool things? Yeah. That might be all we've got at this point.
Hey guys, everyone who's running for AMS president, could you please move up to the pouches here? Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I just found the time. At least.
And then do you want to control the mics if I have to?
Yeah, just go there and stand them. I feel like, is this the live?
Live stream.
Okay. No, you can sit down.
We could easily push like, you know, like half like
I was trying to tell that we just people want to sit there, just sit in the front down here, like just on the ground. I think people are kind of figuring out they're standing, you know. I'm just gonna stand here like an idiot. I'll chill here with Lawrence. I'm just gonna chill behind you. It's all good.
Get started at 6:00.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think we're already starting late, so there's no way we're starting.
Hello everyone, we will be starting the debate in 5 minutes. If everyone could please take a seat, we will be starting the debate in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Ruffle, you can. Ruffle. It's a ruffle.
raffle.
That's where I give it all.
Gotta do it, Lawrence. When's Friday?
That's what I'm saying.
Sign for the raffle? Yeah. I'll just go around like, raffle. My seat. Wow. What?
Hey everyone, before we start shortly, if anybody wants to join like the raffle or like the giveaway, which is like small business owned candles and other like cute things, just come find us and we'll give you a raffle ticket. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Hello? Hi. We will be starting the debate. Candidates, can someone please pick up the two mics? I just want to make sure that the sound is working on both mics. So,
Yeah. Microphone 1, check.
awesome.
Hello? No.
Try that
Is
again.
it? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. This is going to be the first of 3 forums that we will have occurring this week, and I hope you can also join us for the other 2 forums that will be happening. My name is ubyssey, and I'm the coordinating editor of the ubyssey, and I will be moderating all 3 debates. I'm sorry for the noise. If for some reason you can't hear me very clearly, I will try my best to speak slowly and clearly. If it's too loud, also please someone let me know. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam people. For those who might not be familiar with the term unceded, unceded essentially means stolen. And this is a very important reminder about the history of the land that we stand on today. And before we continue, I would like to go over the general structure of this debate and share a few reminders with both candidates and audience members. So regarding the structure of the debate, candidates will have 1 minute for opening statements. We will then move on to 3 pre-prepared questions where candidates will have 1 minute to respond and 2 to 4 minutes of open debate for each question. And then we will end each debate with a 1 minute closing statement. Before that closing statement, we will be accepting audience questions. Candidates, please wait until I call on you to answer a question. Each candidate will receive a 15-second and a 5-second warning for their speech times, and I will indicate your time is up by simply saying time. During the open debate, candidates should raise 1 finger if they have a new statement or line of questioning they would like to open up, or if they would like to respond, please raise your open palm. Please do not speak until I call on you, and I will limit a candidate's speaking time during the open debate if necessary by saying thank you, candidate, at which time you should stop talking. And I will be assigning priority to those who a question pertains to and to those who have not had their chance to speak. For audience members and those watching from home through our live stream, please submit questions through our DM on Twitter at ubyssey News, or through our Facebook live stream chat, or if you are here, you can also raise your hand and someone will come to you and write down your question. Our goal is to have at least 2 audience questions, time permitting, but we will see how everything goes. If we do not get to your question today, please still submit it because we might be able to get to your question during the great debate. You can also follow our debate and debate recaps on our Twitter at ubyssey News and our ubyssey blog for our humor coverage of the debates. Thank you so much again for everyone being here tonight. And we will start the debate with a 1 minute opening statement from each of the candidates. I'm just going to follow the order we are sitting down right now. So Remy the Rat, can you please start your opening statement? You have 1 minute.
Hello. All right. Hi, my name is Esme, and I'm here representing Remy the Rat from Open Kitchen. As many of you may know, there was that fateful day in January 2022 where, most of us were online, but people in Orchard Commons were still, living their lives, having to get their food, their daily food, and what do you know, but you find that there was Remy the Rat sitting on the grill station at Open Kitchen, just enjoying his day. And it was really
15 seconds.
I have 15 seconds. That's cool. So Remy the Rat is here to bring out some radical justice issues and really engage with students and bring up the voter turnout.
Time.
So thank you.
Time, Ken. Thank you so much. The Pen, you have 1 minute and starts now.
Hello, I'm Thomas, and I'm acting as the Pan's interpreter. We have a non-neural link from Tesla, or non-Tesla neural link, so it can speak through me at will. There's a deep abiding social malaise at UBC as we skip out on social events to study more and limit ourselves to sanitized AMS events, because all the Vancouver culture is a 40-minute bus ride away. There are 2 culprits. UBC's obsession with the Times Higher Education University rankings, and the AMS not allowing students to drink in AMS spaces. It sucks. But I digress. Where others are joke serious candidates, I am a serious joke candidate. I have beliefs that I'm making up at the moment, but
15 seconds.
I have a commitment to UBC to carpe this diem. I will combat careerism by campaigning without any intention of being elected. A pan for one is a pan for all. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Sydney Herrick-Hall, you have 1 minute. You can start now.
Hi everybody, my name is Sydney, and I'm proud to be here today to talk about what my plans are for president and why I'm running. I'm running because I believe that only people who are independent of the AMS are capable of keeping our student government accountable. We have seen so many years go by with the bare minimum of what students want to be done, or candidates overpromising and underdelivering. My plans are highly focused and are what I view to be the most important issues on campus. Stopping tuition increases, giving students more places to study and simply exist at any time of day, especially at night, and giving students more opportunity to be a part of the UBC community and find their place here, whether it be clubs, get-togethers, or leadership opportunities.
15 seconds.
We need a president who not only understands student needs, but also understands who students are. And I am the person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidate. Candidate Wesley Choi. You can start now.
Oh, evening guys, I'm Wesley. Being honest, I literally decided to run 3 weeks ago. I'm a student, like all of you guys, you know. I've spent my first year, most of my time in UBC online. It's boring, you know, just looking at the screen, that's dumb. Y'all probably feel it. I'm running this because, you know what? I should give it a try, you know, just being someone that's not involved with student government before, you know, just bringing change. You know, I hope, you know, just make stuff cheaper. It's expensive. We're in Vancouver. Everything is so expensive. I just can't. Housing's expensive, food's expensive, everything's expensive. My gosh. In my campaign, I hope to bring more cheap eatery on campus, and I hope to call for general cap of tuition increase for both domestic and international students. Vote Wesley Choi, the best choice.
Thank you so much, candidate. There we go. Saad Schweb, you can start now.
Hey folks, my name is Saad and I'm running to be your next AMS president. For the past 2 years, I've had the privilege to serve students as the AMS Associate Vice President and Vice President External Affairs. Some of my recent advocacy includes successfully pushing the government to commit to historic student-centric supports, like the permanent removal of interest rates on federal student loans, increasing repayment assistance so no student has to repay their loans until they make $50,000 per year, and easing pathways to permanent residency for international students. The past 2 years have shown me where the AMS falls short, which is why I'm running on a vision for a new AMS. An AMS which provides students with the right support, and an AMS that is just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive. Thank you.
Candidate Ashana Bangu, please start.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Ashana and I'm running to be your next AMS president. Over the past year, I've served you as a student senator and your VP academic, and during this time, I've successfully advocated for the extension of the drop date, over $9 million directly back to students through financial aid, over $1.5 million towards recorded lecture technology, and $1 million in reducing food insecurity. As your next AMS president, I want to focus on creating affordable housing, childcare, and education, centering social justice and equity in all our AMS operations and advocacy, increase mental health support and harm reduction services, creating a culture of accountability and transparency at the AMS, and supporting international students. I have a proven track record, I'm consistent, I'm sincere, and I deliver. And yeah, thank you.
Candidate Tate Kaufman, please start.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Tate Kaufman, and I'm running to be AMS president. The first thing I want to call to attention is how incredibly difficult it was for students to find information about this debate. The only way to do that was by following the AMS elections page, not even the main AMS page, which is only followed by about 1/60th of the student population. And that illustrates the incredible opacity with which the AMS operates. As AMS president, I'm going to ensure there's more transparency. I'm going to slash and break away the COVID measures that have been shutting down campus, preventing you from getting the in-person education you deserve. I'm going to fight to tap out tuition hikes. I'm going to fight to defend free expression and open discourse on campus. And I'm going to fight to make sure that increased accessibility is available for student services, student needs, and student support. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now be moving on to 3 predetermined questions. As a reminder, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to this question, and then we will move on to a 4-minute open debate structure. For the first question is, I'm so sorry. President is a role that is largely undefined. How do you see yourself shaping this role? Remy the Rat, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you so much. Now that I know how short a minute is. Yeah, Remy is really somebody who, is used to leading a team in the kitchen, and now he's getting out of the kitchen because, society's trying to get a lot cleaner, and so he wanted to go where, everybody already has their hands dirty, politics. And so Remy is interested in, meeting up with everybody in the team. He's used to being head chef. And as head chef, you need to know what everybody in the team is up to. And so, by having regular meetings with each VP and VP's team, every layer of the AMS, needs to be involved in order for there to be real capacity for making big change in our organizations. Yeah.
Thank you, candidates. I would also like to remind all candidates to please keep their masks on during the debate. Thank you so much. The pan. Yes, but you are not currently speaking while the other candidates are speaking, so can you please kindly put your mask on? Thank you. The pan, you may start.
I believe the president has a duty to foster a community of leadership and as we've said, transparency in the AMS. And I think for the most part, when people campaign for president, they promise a lot of things that fall entirely outside the scope of president. So anyway, here's my campaign. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the president gets to choose music at AMS events. I think the music at AMS events should suck less. I think we need to foster a culture of inclusivity and, I think we should just tell students to chill out a little bit. I think, go to less classes, they're gonna be there when you get back. We're recording classes now. Just
15 seconds.
Get off campus when you can, get a bubble tea, just chill out, man. You work so hard. That's, as president, I would make things fun.
Thank you, candidate. Sydney, you may start.
Yes. All right. I believe that the president's job is to provide a solid vision for the campus in which they are part of, and for the rest of their executive team. The president's job is to show the rest of the executives exactly what they need to do. And I believe that you need to focus on several things which you believe to be attainable and which you believe that your executive team can manage and can execute. I believe that the president has to be strong-willed and has to be extremely focused on what they're doing, and not just focus on the things which others perceive as their own shortcomings, and should not care about what other people think of them, and should just care about the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Wesley, you may start.
I think something about president, in the AMS that we often forget, it's a student, it's a student position. I think something that, in my term as president, I really hope to undertake a moving out of the office initiative. I don't think the president should be, sitting in a nice office. The president should be working with the students. Like team meetings, just do an IKB. It's a great place. Turn the AMS office, at least the executive part, for students to study, or a nap room, because let's be honest, I love napping. It's great. It's healthy, just saying. But I as president, I really hope, to move the team closer with students. I think a vision of mine for AMS is as a student union that's really for the student. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate. Saad, please start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Sydney brought up a really good point, and that is, working with the vice presidents on creating pragmatic and achievable goals. As the president, if I'm elected, I'd be working with each vice president on creating those goals and making sure that those goals are easily achievable and are pragmatic and are ambitious, because our AMS needs to be ambitious. Not only, just leading the executive, but also making sure that we're involving students and on-campus BIPOC organizations in all the decisions that we make here at the AMS. It's really important that, the AMS isn't just being transparent, but it's also engaging with those organizations. And if I'm elected, I will be hosting quarterly town halls to promote student involvement at the AMS, while providing students with the ability to keep their AMS accountable. That's the best way where we can get a lot of that student involvement, where we can get a lot of those student opinions. That's something that was really successful this year at the AGM. It's successful every single year at the AGM, and a lot of students find that to be quite engaging. Sorry, it's still time?
Yes. So,
okay.
No, sorry, you don't. Sorry, time.
Okay.
Yeah, time. Ashana, you may start.
Yeah, so while the president of the AMS has a lot of responsibilities, I think there's one duty, and that is to fight for students. As your next AMS president, I will ensure that the advocacy that my office has been doing in terms of being transparent, in terms of engaging with students, is something that can be seen in the entire AMS. I'm going to do a no limits governance review to evaluate where we're falling short, implement some internal accountability measures, because students who are working part-time jobs and have personal lives, have academics to worry about, they really shouldn't have to bear the burden of trying to hold their execs accountable. Executives need to be behaving that way to begin with. So I'm going to implement some stringent conflict of interest rules, have a no limits governance review, center students, create that internal accountability, and over the past year, I've engaged with over 15,000 students, and I want to make sure that every person at the AMS is doing that. So in one word, I think it's to fight for students.
Tate, you may start.
Yeah, for me, being AMS president is really about being a leader out of the current circumstances we find ourselves in. It's about finding a way to get campus life back, to get these back on campus, to make sure that students are able to have the education in person that they deserve. And it's also about not being hypocritical. It's about not saying, oh, we need more affordability, while simultaneously taking student money and spending it on retreats, free food for executives, and all those things which the current executive body has done. It's also not about decrying for climate justice and then ordering hundreds of thousands of disposable masks manufactured with petroleum products, as the current administration did. So we really need a student approach that is averse to the rank hypocrisy that is evident in the current student governance, and we need to fight back and fight for measures that students actually believe in.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move on to an open debate section that is going to last 5 minutes. If you would like to open a debate, please raise your hand. It's answering that same question. It's about that same question. So if you would like to open the debate, please raise your hand. Okay. Perfect. Tate, you may open the debate.
Would anyone else on stage have advocated for classes to remain in person throughout the pandemic?
Wesley, please. Wesley? Yeah.
I think you're no offense, but you're being unrealistic for many students that live off campus. I think you're only caring about a small population of students that live on campus.
I
Please
live
let me
off
finish
campus.
my statement. Please let me
Candidate,
finish.
please do not interrupt other candidates.
I think, you know, it's the circumstances we find ourselves in. It's unfortunate that it's unfortunate we're doing online school. I do not like it. I absolutely hate it. I think we have to know the line between realistic options and basically straight up fantasy. Like it or not, we're not going to be back fully normal. It's not going to happen anytime soon. We're going to have to live with it. And regarding your statement about like wasting resources on masks, I mean, as much as, you know, it's, you know, not disposable, you just have to, it's part of like, it's change, you know, it happens, get used to it.
Sydney, if you would still like to respond.
I believe that if we were to have campus or on-campus classes during the pandemic, it would have been a gross misunderstanding of exactly what the job of UBC is to do, and it is to not only teach their students valuable skills, but also to protect their students. I don't believe that the viewpoint that we should restrict safety measures for COVID is in any way realistic or good for our students, not only because the things that we do for our students are mainly province-wide mandates, but also because what Ishana did for us by giving us disposable masks, I was so grateful for that. Not only because it's a financial barrier for me to buy disposable masks, but also because it's the safest option where you can just use it and then when it is too used, you can give it away.
Candidate, please reach a conclusion.
It's just completely unrealistic for us to have wanted that or to want that in the future. Thank you.
Saad, if you would like to continue.
Yeah, I would agree with Wesley, and I also agree with Sydney. You know, I think that there was, you know, a large diversity of opinions on this. You know, it wasn't just I want to go back in person, I want to be online. Nobody likes online classes. It's something that we had to do in order to keep everyone safe. You know, in terms of the masks, I totally agree with Sydney. You know, I think that was, the right move. In terms, I think that this comes to, the issue of how do we gauge what students want? How do we make sure that, we're actually making informed decisions? And that is, by engaging directly with the student population. Whether it's eliminating barriers and promoting student attendance at AMS Council, or whether it's, making sure that we're hosting quarterly town halls. It's really important that we're opening up these avenues for engagement, for students to provide us those, mechanisms for feedback. And without that, we're not going to be able to really determine what their opinions are.
Candidate, please reach a conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also do think that it is important to understand the fact that there was so many people who didn't want to be in person, who wanted to be online, and then vice versa as well.
Candidate Shauna, please.
Just before my time starts, can I ask a clarifying question to you?
Huh?
I can talk about the main question that was asked by you, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So when it comes to like what is a really important part of the president's role, I will say that a huge thing that's often missed is uplifting and bringing to our center marginalized voices. And that's from equity deserving groups and marginalized voices all across campus. I think for years groups have, rightly so, voiced that they feel that they're extractively consulted, whether it's indigenous groups on campus, whether it's other equity deserving groups. So for that, as your next president, what I would like to do is create an internal policy to compensate those that are doing that kind of work for us and helping AMS do that anti-racism work, the very heavy, emotionally laborious work, actually, that often goes unrecognized. I think oftentimes people are focused on addressing the manifestations of the inequities. It's really important that we're also addressing the root causes, and this would be an essential step in doing that. So just adding to my answer of what's really important for a president to do, it is to ensure that social justice and marginalized voices that are often neglected are at the front of our work and are also appropriately compensated for their contributions because it's difficult work. So yeah, I guess I wanted to add that.
Thank you so much. We will be now moving on to our second question due to our time constraints. So for our second question, Again, each one of you will have 1 minute to respond, and then we'll have a 4-minute open debate for that question. So, for our second question, what are key issues with policy I-17, which is the sexual violence policy, and I-18, which is the respectful community and workplace policy, that you hope to see remedied in the reviews currently taking place? We will start the debate with Tate Kaufman, and we will go on that way. Tate, whenever you're ready, you may start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing we need to work on in this area, in addition to providing more financial support to SASC, is also improving the ability for students to go to the legal resources and that they need, and the hospital resources that they need. Over the past couple of years, there's been a substantial building of student mistrust with police due to events within our own nation and internationally. And we need to make sure students have somewhere that they can feel safe and that they can go to, that they'll be able to disclose anything that's happened to them and get the legal, financial, and emotional support they need.
Thank you, candidate. Ashana, you may start.
Yeah, I think when it comes to sexual violence prevention and workplace respectful policies, it's really important to, and I'll focus on the sexual violence prevention one. It's essential that we're taking a trauma-informed and survivor-centric approach. Oftentimes, and I collaborated with SASC on Sexual Assault Awareness Month just last month, and a lot of these conversations are very difficult to have and were brought up that there's stigma associated with certain types of disclosures. There's a lot of, I hate to use the word, but it is true, gaslighting going on, right? And a lot of that is also seen in the workplace. So it's essential that when we are doing these reviews, we're consulting with the appropriate bodies with the expertise who have been doing this work for years, like UBC, SV Pro, SASC, and the investigations office. So essentially, I would say what I would like to see centered is a survivor-centric and a trauma-informed approach to reviewing these policies.
5 seconds. Thank you. As a reminder, candidates, it is best to be as specific as possible, especially when I am talking about certain policies and reviews of certain policies. Saad, if you would like to start.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that in terms of sexual violence policy, it is really important that we continue to have those trauma-informed and survivor-centric approaches, but it's also important that we're being intersectional when we're seeking to support survivors of gender-based and sexualized violence. This is one of the things that I worked on directly with, alongside student unions across the province, lobbying the province to establish minimum standards in sexual violence prevention policies. This is something that we really need to make sure that we're collaborating with SASC on, but that we're also involving students and on-campus BIPOC organizations into. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Wesley, you may start.
I'm just gonna say, I'm from Hong Kong. I grew up there. It's very different, the culture there. So I understand there's it's like a huge barrier for any survivors to go talk about this. This is like very, very touchy subject. I think it's essential that we provide support, just to remove these barriers for students to talk about it. But I think also another approach is just education to the general student body, because we just don't want to see stuff like this happen at all. Prevention is also a very important direction we should be taking. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, candidate. Sydney, you may start.
I believe that we should make it easier for students to access care when it comes to sexual violence, and especially with respectful workplaces. I believe that the most important issue is prevention. I think that we should make it easier for all people to come forward when they believe that certain actions are going to lead into further issues down the line. Sometimes we just get a small comment one day and we don't feel comfortable enough, or we don't feel that it's important enough to come forward about something like that. And we should make sure that any little thing that makes people uncomfortable, we should be able to address it, and we should be able to make people feel safe when they come forward with those kinds of issues.
15 seconds.
We should also create spaces where people feel comfortable coming forward, and we should also make it available for people to come forward anonymously, just because of they are afraid
That is
of becoming
correct.
known to the public.
Thank you. The pen, you may start.
Yeah, I think the SAS has been doing a great job in creating an informed student population and creating a culture of consent at UBC, and I don't think they could possibly have enough resources to do that work. I think, yeah, as Ishana said, I think having a trauma-informed approach is the most important way to go about this, and I think that at all levels of bureaucracy, there should be some sort of trauma-informed training for anyone making a consequential decision, but I don't feel comfortable commenting this on a joke format.
Yes, I mean, yes. Remy the Rat, you may start.
Yeah, fair enough. I will partly echo that, but I guess to speak from Remy's perspective as someone who was working with the university, yeah, definitely want to see like those opportunities through when like people are working with the university, like staff get small like training courses on workplace harassment and yeah, seeing how we can build communities, workplaces, even like clubs, perhaps like encouraging, say like club VP internals to also have this like information and education on trauma-based yeah, approaches to making sure that everybody feels really safe. I think that when we are, you know, experiencing, yeah, like Sydney said, like small comments, it can feel like, oh, was that
That's
really serious
fine.
enough to take to the SAS? But yeah, having small community reps for these things would be a strong thing.
Thank you, candidate. As a reminder, policies 117 and 118 are not necessarily related to the SASC. They are the sexual violence policy of the AMS and the respectful community and workplace policy of the AMS. We will now move on to a 4 minutes of open debate regarding that question. Would anyone like to start that debate? The pen.
It seems as though we're generally in agreement on a lot of points, so I personally don't have any debate points to make here.
Saad.
Yeah, I would actually agree with Thomas or the pan, or the pan. But, you know, I will take this opportunity, you know, to encourage everyone to vote for the SASC referendum. It is super, super important that you vote for them. This is going to ensure the long-term growth of operations for the SASC. They do absolutely amazing work. So I would strongly encourage that everyone vote yes on the SASC referendum.
Are there any points related to the question or open debate? If there are none, we will move on to our third question of the night. And again, each one of you will have 1 minute to respond, and then we will have 4 minutes of open debate. The question is, the student engagement survey found that 61% of students don't know how to contact their elected student representative. How will you promote communication channels with yourself and other execs? We will start again with Remy.
Yes, so I think part of Remy's whole idea for this campaign is to bring the joy and humor back into what, like how we engage students. And so, you know, I've seen and Remy has seen on some of the AMS's social media, trying to make like fun, engaging videos. And so there's social media. There's also just like talking with people as much as possible, getting out there and bringing, yeah, humor and joy and community
15 seconds.
To making sure that people know who is in the AMS and who they can talk to about
5 seconds.
advocating for them.
Time, thank you. The pen, you may start.
To ensure a culture of transparency at the AMS, if the PAN is elected president, it will hold office hours once a week, but only allowing negative feedback. We need to do better in every aspect. If you read Reddit, you're always going to be wrong. But alternatively, the PAN, as being not a human, has superhuman endurance, and so will be standing outside the nest for 24 hours each week. And if you don't see him, I mean, whatever you're going to say is not worth saying.
Thank you, candidate. Sydney, you may start.
I know from personal experience that in my first year, I didn't even know that AMS existed until I joined a club and they were complaining about it. I personally believe that the most important thing is to outline very specifically to all students as soon as they enter UBC exactly how important the AMS is. Not only does the AMS control some of your tuition money, they use the AMS fees, but also most students don't even know how to benefit from those fees either. I think the most important thing is just awareness. You know, not only more posters, but more direct emails, more teachers, maybe not direct emails, but more teachers addressing you at the beginning of the courses, being
15
like,
seconds.
hey guys, this is something that exists, you need to know that it exists, and you need to know that it's very important for you, and it's very important for your life here at UBC.
Thank you so much, candidate. Candidate Wesley, you may start.
Yeah, you know, honestly, most of us really don't have an idea what the AMS does, especially an average student. Like, you know, there's the AMS nest because it's called that, so, you know, it's an organization, you know? And, you know, chances are if you're on Reddit, you will probably hear most stuff about AMS is extremely negative and then straight up complaining. I think it has something to do with, you know, AMS is a big, big organization. I think you just have to simplify it, like, and, you know, just get the word out. You know, I really agree with, you know, cooperating more with the, you know, faculty, staff, you know, having, you know, just your interaction with your professors are very, very, like, every day. You know, if your professors do more promoting for just, you know, AMS service in general, it would help. And I think making it easier for students would just be great in general. And I hope, you know, the AMS will be an organization that students genuinely know and are proud of.
Thank you, candidate. As a reminder, please try to be as specific as possible as how you would promote the communication channels with yourself and your other execs. Saad, you may start. Oh, so sorry. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that my platform is pretty clear on this. You know, whether it's establishing monthly video addresses, using various social media platforms to keep, you know, students informed on what's going on at the AMS and at UBC, or whether it's mandating the AMS executives to publish quarterly reports as a way of providing students with informed, brief, and concise updates. It's also important, you know, that we're increasing engagement with first-year students. First-year students come into, you know, UBC not knowing what the AMS is, and until they run into the AMS, then they're not going to know what it is at all. So my plan around that is to establish a first-year student mentorship program so that AMS executives can act as those mentors, and also increasing engagement with first-year students through increased AMS awareness campaigns and all new AMS guidebook and introductory workshops. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Ashana, you may start.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question. I have to say, you know, I think the Equity Action Plan of the AMS really outlines that it's essential that we're empowering students to give direct feedback and have difficult conversations. Now, not all conversations have to be difficult, of course, but it's important to have that direct line of communication. So as the next AMS president, what I would do is, and this is something I've done as VPAOA as well, you have to leverage the channels we have and increase awareness through there. I would regularly consult and use the constituencies and clubs to ensure that students know that we're here as a resource, because the fundamental purpose of the student union is to fight for students and is to be there for students. So it's essential that students know that. So I would use constituencies and clubs. I would use, well, a lot of on-the-ground awareness also works. And also, orientations are a great opportunity. When that first week jumpstart, I think I would really leverage those opportunities as well to increase awareness of AMS as a resource for students. And yeah, I guess I'm out of time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tate, you may start.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important with engaging students is, number one, having video updates, like I think Saad mentioned. I think one of the things that Santa Ono did that was really excellent over the pandemic was having those weekly UBC updates. Another thing is actually taking the time to talk to students after class in hallways, engaging with them that way, because the reality is most students don't know how to reach out to the AMS. They don't know where to get the number of the president, don't know where the office hours are, and don't really have the time to go out and do that. So I think you need to actually go out and engage with your students themselves, especially if it's groups you're having conflict with. And just one last point on the Equity Action Plan, as Shauna mentioned, something that's actually really concerning about that plan, and I've got a slide of it right here, is it says AMS spaces being utilized for free speech propagates hate speech. So I can't see how that line possibly promotes open dialogue when you're saying that free speech is hate speech. So that's no way to run a discussion.
Thank you, candidates. We will now be moving on to a 4-minute open debate regarding that question. Would anyone like to start that debate? Wesley?
You know, just
No, Wesley, please, you have the floor.
just answering that, regarding your statement about, just free speech is hate speech. I think if you look at you seem to have it's like you're only inviting speakers of certain political backgrounds. That's not truly free speech if you only have one side of the argument. But you know what? Moving on to engagement, I think simply, we're in technology. You know what? Just make sure your emails, your social media are open. Just make them easy. I want to be a president that's like a friend, for students. You could just hit me up like your friends. You could call me. I'm not sure if any of you still do that, because who calls people, let's be honest. Just, send me a message on Instagram, whatever. Thank you very much.
Saad.
Yeah, I think that, Shauna brought up a really good point, and it is, bringing in, underrepresented voices. It's really important that, we're amplifying BIPOC voices within the AMS, by creating regular roundtable discussions with on-campus BIPOC organizations to provide BIPOC students with, avenues for engagement. Additionally, it's also important that we're amplifying Indigenous voices by effectively communicating available on-campus leadership opportunities, to ensure that we're involving Indigenous students in decision-making roles. There's been so many gaps in the way that the AMS has been trying to get BIPOC and Indigenous voices involved in the AMS. It's really important that we address those first and foremost.
Shauna, please.
Yeah, when it comes to student engagement, I think one thing I'd like to highlight is that my team and I over the past year engaged with over 15,000 students, and this was through surveys, through boothing, where we had one person stop every minute we were boothing. So it's been really helpful in informing our work. I've also been, my team and I have been the most transparent office in terms of actively trying to communicate our work that we've been doing. And I think that's something that needs to go to every single department of the AMS. And for that, you do need accountability measures, right? Like, for example, if we are setting that goal to be as transparent, as public as possible, how are we tracking that? How are we ensuring that we're really cracking down on when it's not happening? Because it shouldn't be reactive. We really need to be proactive and go out there, talk to students, and gauge how they're feeling to inform our advocacy, work, and services.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, candidate. Pen.
First off, if any AMS exec came and talked to me in the hallway at Buchanan A right after I bombed a midterm, I would immediately launch a campaign to defund the entire AMS. What I do think is that the AMS president should have to eat lunch every day in the AMS atrium with a big neon sign saying AMS president. Then you're going to find him. But, I mean, first of all,
please reach a conclusion.
I think that was a weird left turn at the end. That was a bizarre choice.
Remy the Rat, if you would like to respond.
Hi, yes. So Remy's got a bit of a delay with me. My control with Linguini compared to Linguini is not as strong. But he said to make sure to say that it would be great perhaps to have like syllabus blurbs about the AMS, you know, as many teachers have been including blurbs about COVID-19 and like different ways that students can reach out for help with well-being. It would be great to have a blurb about student advocacy and how people can get engaged with the AMS more, because it is really important for making sure that people have their like political roots, and for getting engaged with the union and really making it so that everybody feels like they're part of the union again. Yeah, so syllabus blurbs perhaps, and also, yeah, Imagine Day, orientation, and having more town halls throughout the year would be fantastic.
Thank you, candidate. Sydney, would you like to respond to that same question, the same line of?
Yes.
Okay, then you may go.
So I believe that historically the AMS has done a really bad job of making information available to students. It feels as though sometimes they just publish raw data and expect us to look through it and be able to understand it at all. I think that a way to increase student engagement with the AMS is to make it easier for them to understand the information that is being put out, and to make it easier for them to ask questions. Most of the time when I read something about what the AMS is doing, I don't even know who's in charge of doing that particular activity. And I believe that we should make sure that we have each person, each vice president and the president have their own avenue where we can look exactly at what projects they're working on and exactly what they're doing.
Thank you, candidate. Tate, you will be last to speak on this open debate.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. There you go.
Yeah, that's
That was
very
a
loud.
little
I think one of the major issues with outreach right now is the limited options in a lot of student response surveys. I have from last year, midway through the pandemic, a student response survey question that said, what would make you more comfortable in the return to campus? High vaccination rates, increased physical distancing, mandatory vaccination, being fully vaccinated. And it was a ranked ballot option. And the thing about this is the AMS provided no opportunity for students to dissent from the narrative that they were pushing, that COVID mandates were absolutely necessary and that full vaccination and vaccination mandates were necessary. And I think that we need to be really intentional about structuring any surveys we have so that we can truly get the genuine student opinion rather than streamlining and railroading their responses in a certain direction.
Thank you, candidate. We will now be moving on to audience questions. We have received 2 questions from the audience through our social media channels. However, if there is anyone in the audience right now who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we will write it down. There are 2 questions over here. Please, thank you. So our first question, and this is just for Saad, and there will be no open debate for this question. You have 30 seconds to respond. The question is, how are you anti-establishment when you've held an AMS position and had access to networking within the fraternities to move up in the AMS?
I've been pretty clear on this. I haven't said that I'm, I am anti-establishment, and that's something that, I am quite passionate about in terms of, how I've, sort of put that forward. Me, myself, I have, produced work for, my role, and I've continued to outperform.
15 seconds.
Oh, it's only 30 seconds? Okay, I've continued to, make sure that, I'm contributing to, towards my role as much as I can. In terms of, how I'm getting involved in these roles, I am just putting myself out there. This is nothing, special. Any student can put themselves out there. And I encourage every single student who comes to me to put themselves out there. I've been mentoring students to, run in this election. I've been, telling students that they can run, and any student who comes to me, I provide them with, advice on running and making sure that they're getting involved.
Thank you, candidate. So sorry. The next question that we received from the audience is, and each one of you will have a chance to respond. It's only 30 seconds, so half the time from before. I know it's a very short time, so please try to be concise and specific. As the next AMS president, how will you ensure that AMS committees, consisting of executives, counselors that represent us in council, and students at large, meet regularly and effectively to work in students' interests? We will start with Sydney. You have 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think the most important thing is to have scheduled meetings. People's schedules often don't align, so the perfect thing to do is just to tell them straight off the bat, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be talking to these people, and you wanted students to be part of it as well?
They will meet regularly and effectively to work in students' interests.
Work in students' interests. Exactly. Okay, so we don't even need students to come. This is perfect.
10 seconds.
All of these people work. It is their job. They get paid to do this. They should be responsible to show up to talk about students' behavior or what's good for the students. And if they're not doing that, they're not exactly doing their job.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Wesley, you are next. You have 30 seconds to respond to this question.
I think just it's like you sign on to the job, you should do it. If you're doing a job that you don't or not interested in, just quit. Why bother? You know, I think if you're just not liking the job and don't care, it's about students. You know, if you don't care about the students, just don't. Sorry.
Thank you, candidate. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, would you be able to repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. So the question one more time is, as the next AMS president, how will you ensure that AMS committees meet regularly and effectively to work in students' interests?
Absolutely. You know, I think that it's really important that we're creating a strategic. We're continuing work on the existing strategic plan, and also revisiting the 2015 AMS governance review. Throughout the past couple of years, we've noticed that that's been a prevailing problem, and it is really important for us to also continue to involve people who are interested in this. I think that everyone I've served on, in a committee has been committed to it, and I think that the governance review is going to be something that's going to be great because it's going to highlight a lot of the issues that committees have.
Thank you, Ashana.
Yeah, so a bit of context, AMS counselors serve on committees. They're volunteers, they don't get paid. However, the committee chairs do get paid. So I think there's a great opportunity to link that honorarium they get with the frequency and performance of the committee. So if a committee is not meeting frequently and it is not performing the duties it's supposed to, you do not give that honorarium. So I think that's a very simple, straightforward solution I will implement as the next AMS president.
Tate?
Yeah, I've worked many jobs. I've worked as landscape construction, retail, marketing, policy analysis. I've never worked a job where if you don't show up, you get paid. So that's the one really simple thing. Being an AMS executive has obligations. If you don't meet those obligations, you shouldn't get paid.
Thank you. Remy?
Thank you. Yes, as a head chef, Remy is really experienced with making sure his little hands are all over like Google Calendar, when to meet, making sure that people are able to, really have that set of, like infrastructure for meeting up very regularly. He'd also be interested in perhaps coalition building and like meeting with more marginalized groups like resource groups and the Indigenous Committee and the different student unions to make sure we're working for students.
Thank you, candidate. The pad.
Well, the answer isn't using Slack, am I right? Good Slack show there for you. I think, the answer as always is better music, juice boxes, cookies, and I think all committee chairs should be headed by the stinkiest, dweebiest dungeon master because no one I've ever seen has been more motivated than my boy Michael.
Thank you, candidate. We will now move on to a 2.5 minutes of open debate regarding that question. Would anyone like to start that debate?
I
I think it's pretty unanimous that we all agree that it should be a requirement of the job to meet up and to talk about this kind of thing. I think what's most important is how exactly you're going to push through with that particular promise. I'm just going to reiterate what I said. It's just making sure that it's guaranteed that like every week or every 2 weeks, you have to show up on this day. Nothing else supersedes this because it is, you're the AMS, it's for the students, it's
Please reach a conclusion.
most important thing. And if you can't do that, what exactly are you
candidate.
doing? Thank you.
Ashana, please. About a minute and a half.
Yeah, so I think I'll just expand on something I'm running on, which is a no limits governance review. I think this problem of committees not meeting frequently is tied to a greater problem of maybe council isn't as effective as it should be. Council is a completely volunteer body, and I think with the no limits governance review, which would be unlike the previous one that was like 2015, several years ago, made some suggestions, but I don't think it went far enough to ensure that we have the internal accountability measures that would apply to everyone. So I think it does come down to creating that culture of accountability, transparency, and ensuring that there's consequences when you're not doing your job. I'll just use an example of even executive goals. Oftentimes, the conversation between executives and council when we're talking about our goals is one-sided. What are the consequences if executives are not meeting their goals? So just again, I'll reiterate that it's essential we have consequences to our actions, and I think a no limits governance review and internal accountability will certainly help with this issue. And as the next AMS president, I hope to do that.
We have about 45 more seconds in this open debate. Would anyone like to take?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how we can expect someone who's sort of part of the enmeshed AMS fabric to conduct a no limits governance review when they're not bringing in outside voices, or how you are going to get those outside voices.
Ashana, you may respond.
Yeah, actually, I think when it comes to being an insider or an outsider, there's an interesting thing to look at. I didn't come up in the AMS from the traditional route. I was just a student senator. I ran in my first year. And then last year, I ran in the only contested AMS election there was against a very established AMS staff member. So I do bring that outside perspective. However, spending a year inside the AMS, I've been able to see what the issues are, and now I know how the AMS works to be able to fix it. So I think saying that I'm some sort of embedded AMS insider is inaccurate.
Thank you so much, candidates. We will now be moving on to our final question from our audience. And this question is, again, each one of you will have 30 seconds to respond, and then we will have a 2.5 minutes of open debate. The question is, why do you think you are a better candidate than the other people running for president? And we will start with Saad.
Absolutely. You know, I've had the honor to serve students and advocate for students for the better part of 2 years. And along the way, I've seen a lot of areas where the AMS has fallen short. I played a strong role in advocating for students, whether it's on the permanent removal of interest rates or whether it's getting the provincial and federal government to commit funding towards the SkyTrain to UBC. Fighting for students is something that I genuinely feel passionate about. I've done it for 2 years, and I'm hoping to do it for another year. Thank you.
Thank you. Wesley.
I mean, honestly, these are great candidates. I am so unqualified for this job. My gosh, God help us all if I am elected. This will be absolutely hilarious. I mean, honestly, I'm just a guy. I want to make things simple.
15 seconds.
Just make the MS fun, I want to make a bouncy castle for exam week so you could go jump on there and de-stress. Why not?
Thank you, candidate. Sydney, you may answer the question.
In my mind, I've divided the candidates into two groups because I love dividing people. I'm just kidding. We have the people already in the AMS, and we have the new candidates. I believe that out of all the new candidates, I am the most driven.
15
I
seconds.
have the most experience out of all on UBC, on campus. And for the two people who are already in the AMS, I believe that the mistakes that they have made while being in the AMS are a little bit too hard to ignore, such as meeting with ousted Liberal MP, and also, Ishana, copying Cole's campaign promises from 2020 verbatim. Thank you.
The PAN.
I think the PAN would be the best president because it represents the beliefs of all people. It literally, if you have a belief, it represents that because it is PAN belief, PAN morality, PAN talent, PAN qualifications. If you're untalented and unqualified, there's always space for you. But that's with the exception of several specific beliefs. It's a big tent except for like 4% of beliefs. Other than that, your voice will be heard in the AMS.
Thank you, candidate. Remy the Rat.
First of all, if Remy were to be president, he would be proudly the first rat for president. And you would be part of that, making that amazing change. And I think that, what Remy stands for, as I said, radical justice, and climate justice, and open kitchen for all, food security, and bringing lots of issues to light that maybe not everybody would prioritize.
Thank you. Ashana.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being effective and delivering on your promises. My team and I are on track to complete 100% of the goals we set out to at the beginning of the year. I think every single opportunity that's presented itself, I have showed up for students and I've fought for students, whether it's a drop date, whether it's, COVID-19 safety. I have just showed up. And I'll also bring up an affordability thing. Affordability plan and affordability concerns are something that students have run on for years. But I am the vice president who took that from an abstract idea to a tangible plan that's being approved, that's going to board for approval this month. So when it comes to it, I'm effective, I deliver, and that's exactly what I'll do as your next president.
Thank you, candidate. Tate, you may start.
Thank you. I think I'm not going to make an argument for why I'd be the best president. I can make an argument for why I'm going to be a different president than anyone else on stage. I think I've made it pretty clear that my views stand in contrast to a lot of the other members on stage. But I can also tell you that I'm always going to give you direct answers. I'm not going to dodge questions about welcoming outside voices, and I'm going to directly tell you that I would have advocated for in-person classes. So when it comes to things like tuition and other issues you care about, you can bet I'm going to stick my neck out on the line for students and be honest and fight for their interests with all my heart.
Thank you, candidate. We now will have 2.5 minutes of open debate for this question. Saad, I saw your hand first, so I'll allow you to start the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney, for actually bringing that up. I'd like to talk about it. I'll talk a bit about, my work on sexual violence prevention. I've made it my mission to prioritize my advocacy on sexual violence prevention in EDI. As the Associate Vice President External, I work directly on producing key research to highlight the need for more provincial support towards ending gender-based and sexualized violence. That research is being used right now to lobby the provincial government. I lobbied the province for the past 2 years on establishing minimum standards in post-secondary sexual violence policies. Thank you.
Ashana? I'm the one that controls the order. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think when it comes to being different, I think it does come down to feasibility and ambition, right? I have a very ambitious platform, but I've proven, I have a track record that I can deliver. So I think while a lot of my really learned people here do have great ideas, I don't think that their platforms are feasible, and I don't think they have the experience to be able to implement it. I offer that I did come into the AMS initially as someone with a fresh perspective. I've learned how it works, and I know exactly where to target our, whether it's, bringing social justice to the center, I know exactly where to target and get rid of those problems that the students believe are problems. And as your next president, I think that's one thing I can really promise is I will always be there, I will always deliver, and I am sincere. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sydney.
So I'd just like to respond to Saad. I completely understand the work that you've done, and I very much appreciate it, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. The only reason I mentioned the Liberal MP story, again, unfortunately for you, is that it's something you did know before you entered the meeting with him, and it was only after asked about it that you stated you didn't know the full extent of it, which is a little bit questionable, but I will move on quickly. What I stated about Ashana's platform is something that I discovered just this afternoon, where I looked at the ubyssey's candidate profile 2020 for Cole Evans, and I found that it's the exact same as what Ashana put on her candidate profile for the 2022 elections. It's the exact same wording, and I'd like to reach out to the students and ask them if they believe that what Cole Evans has done since 2020 is worth repeating in Ashana's presidency.
I'll allow Saad and Ashana to respond, but please be brief. Ashana? Try it again.
Sydney, I do take issue with you insinuating that my platform isn't mine. I really didn't expect that. To insinuate that I'm just copying from the current president is actually very, well, I don't know, it's very unbecoming, because I have put in a lot of work for students this year, and my platform is things I believe in. And if there are any similarities, like for example, affordability and some concerns that all students believe in, it just highlights that those are issues that matter to students. That doesn't mean I copied someone's platform. And
Saad, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sydney, thank you for bringing that up. It's a great chance for me to apologize and take accountability again. It was a mistake, and we apologize for it. I apologize for it. You apologizes for it. We're reviewing our vetting procedures. We're making sure that we're not meeting with that MP ever again. We are 21-year-olds lobbying the federal government. We are going to make mistakes, and we've learned from those mistakes.
Thank you. I'll entertain one more point from the pan who had their hand raised from the very beginning.
I do take issue with people insinuating that my platform is not feasible. It's a very can't-do attitude, but I do agree with some on stage that we should prioritize outside voices. When we talk about outside voices, I assume they mean marginalized groups or literal outside voices like environmental, coyotes, birds, etc. Anything else, I think, is a group of people that have arguably had enough time to talk, historically.
Thank you so much, candidates. I would like to remind the audience that if you do have a question, unfortunately, just because of our time limit today, we can't get to that many of them. However, please DM us on Twitter at ubyssey News, and we will try to get them on the Great Debate, where we will see all these candidates again on Thursday night. We are now going to be moving on to closing statements. Each one of you will have 1 minute for closing statements, and we will start with you, Tate, and move on down the line. And you may start.
No worries. First of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope you had a good time. In closing, I think you can all tell I'm different than the rest of these candidates. I have very different platforms, from removing COVID measures, making sure we're pursuing in-person learning now and into the future, bringing events on campus back, and continuing to move forward with slashing expenditures on things like free food and free vacation for AMS executives. Those are really important things to me, because I believe that every dollar the AMS takes from your pocket should be spent to genuinely improve your experience at UBC. And I really believe that it's important that students are genuinely engaged with the AMS, and that the AMS interacts with you on your level, and that we're accessible and we're here for you. So seriously, if you want to talk to me about something or an issue you have during this campaign, reach out to me. I'm open to hearing issues, and I'm open to adapting my policy based on the issues that are raised to me.
Thank you, candidate. Ashana?
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone to come. Thank you so much to everyone for coming out today. And I think I've highlighted that I do deliver, so I'm not going to repeat that line once more. But in closing, I will say that as your next AMS president, I want to address the issues that are most important to you: affordability, mental health, representation. And when it does come to representation, I'll talk very briefly about what's motivated me to run. I'm the only female vice president in the past 6 years who has put her name forward for president. And that is something that does mean something to me. I remember reading all those op-eds that used to say, it's just, oh my God, all these male presidents. But anyway, I will also take this opportunity to encourage everyone to vote, no matter who you vote for. But do check out my platform later tonight at ashana.ca. And thank you for coming out.
Thank you, candidate. Saad?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight as well. Having seen and experienced where the current AMS is falling short, I'm proud to be running for this role. And if elected, I will work directly with students to build our new AMS that's going to invest ambitiously and directly into students while ensuring that they can keep their student union accountable. Similar to Ashana, I would also encourage everyone to vote, but also to vote for the referenda. There are so many important referendum questions on the ballot. Even if you don't vote for any candidate, vote for the referenda. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Wesley, you may start.
I mean, honestly, I just don't know too much about AMS, and I hope that is what defines me. Someone that is willing to change. If I see something, I don't like it, I'm gonna change it. You know what, I would not care how much ties it has, I'll do it. But honestly, I hope you vote for me not as a candidate, but as a student that you want to put in the AMS. Just, have fun, have a good evening, vote Wesley Choi, the best choice.
Thank you, candidate. Sydney?
Thanks everyone for listening to what I have to say and what everyone else has to say. I'd like to say that I think it's very important to mention that no matter what our past experiences are or our past successes or failures, what's the most important is what we do now. And I think that we should all remember that this isn't about us as personal candidates, as individual people. It's about what's best for the students. And I believe that we need a candidate who's not only a good politician, but is also connected to all students at UBC. I know that surveys and outreach are very great and they work very well, but they just don't replace real life experience on UBC campus that some people do lack. And I hope that everyone here was able to learn a little bit more about everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. The pan.
I wrote this ahead of time, so I hope it's still relevant. Wow, what a debate, right, guys? Epic highs and lows. As you probably just seen, this AMS election is going to shape up to be a hell of a one. Lots of great ideas from most of the candidates on this stage, and I think I can honestly say that like 3 of them would be good presidents. However, there's also me, student like all other students, because I am the one who won't want to go to work like all of you. If you elect me, you're condemning me to a future surrounded by the type of person that runs for VP Finance. If you're truly dissatisfied with the AMS electoral process, I am the protest vote, and I'm willing to be martyred.
Thank you, candidate. Remy? Oh?
So Remy decided he wanted to come out for the closing statement. So first of all, yes, I echo what people have said about please vote. Please come out and vote. That's what Remy is. One of the big goals here is to increase participatory democracy with the AMS. Remy is running for AMS president to make the AMS a real union again. Remy supports a rapid tuition freeze, affordable student housing on campus, increased funding to food security, mental health and well-being initiatives, hybrid learning, full funding for UBC's climate emergency, Indigenous strategic plan implementation, and turning the AMS from a corporate service provider into the union that bargains on behalf of student power that it should be. So thank you, vote, and do it for Remy.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience members, for being here tonight. We have 2 more debates happening tonight, VP Academic and University Affairs and VP Administration. We will now have a short 5-minute break just to do a new setup for the next debate that is going to be happening. Thank you so much for
Yeah, I. It's like when what do you think?
So Thursday, do you want to watch all the debates or just the president? So for the president,
It's important that you think that
probably going to be around if we start exactly the time, it's about the agreed debate does last like about 5 minutes.
I kind of want to see the VPA
Early because otherwise
Yeah, a bunch of people are about to leave, so yeah, I think we can steal any seating. No. I think it's all
Candidates for VP AUA, please take a seat. All the candidates for the next debate for VP AUA, please take a seat.
You should have said that. Well, no, but you never actually said that in the debate. So it's not true. You didn't say that. Sorry. That is yeah, I was thinking this together. Camille. Hi, Camille. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry, I just want to.
Hello, everyone. We will be starting the VPAUA debate. Please take a seat if you are staying. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I just realized you couldn't hear me before. Please take a seat if you are staying. We will be starting the debate. I'll give you everyone just a minute to sit down. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I will not be going over rules again. I'm so sorry. We will start the debate with 1 minute opening statements from each of you. Please only speak when I call on you. And yes, are there any questions? Okay, awesome. Dana, you will start with your 1 minute opening speech whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here today. I would like to acknowledge again that we are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam Nation. Working towards decolonization and reconciliation should be central to all of our efforts as student leaders. And I think it's pretty clear that we're all living in very difficult times currently faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate emergency, extreme wealth inequality, and a mental health crisis. Now more than ever, students need our support, and that's exactly why I'm running on a platform centered on better tuition and student consultation, increased student affordability, and building an inclusive, accessible, and safe campus for all. I'm excited to discuss these issues with you today. Thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, candidates. Anushraya.
Hello everyone, I'm Anushraya. I'm in my first year right now. The only reason I came up here to participate was because I felt motivated and I wanted everyone else to also be and reach out to actually know about stuff that's available for us. I think being a VP academic position would allow me to be a link between students from the first year, second and third years and above. I'm a person who is pretty open and I love to talk to new people. So I think that is one advantage that I can help everyone with. Adding on to it, according to prevalent situations,
15 seconds.
there is increased mental health awareness that people are facing through, and I can address that as well.
Thank you, candidate. Anisha. You may start.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Anisha Sandhu, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running to be your next AMS Vice President, Academic and University Affairs, and Senator at Large for the Vancouver Senate. My platform is grounded in a holistic approach to support student well-being now and for years to come. Some of my goals include advocating against tuition increases, pushing for affordable housing, food, and childcare on campus, as well as lobbying for a yearly indexing of graduate student stipends. I'm a fifth-year student in the Faculty of Land and Food Systems, and my studies have given me a unique insight into approaching complex issues to think of tangible solutions to root causes rather than Band-Aid fixes. I'm excited to bring this perspective to the VP AUA portfolio, along with my 2 years of serving on the Vancouver Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Camille, you may start.
Awesome. Hey everyone, my name is Camille, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm running to be your next VPAUA and to be on the Vancouver Senate. I'm a current AMS counselor, and I'm super excited to be here. My platform focuses on several different priorities that are grouped into 3 broad categories. One is student affordability, which includes things like housing affordability, combating food insecurity, opposing all tuition increases, supporting international students through reallocations of funding, open education resources, some more affordable textbooks, and having strong advocacy for Campus Vision 2050. Then the second category are academic needs, so things like fully ensuring lecture recordings plus training on their technology use, career support services, research support for all students, and then as well as advocating for strong academic priorities within Campus Vision 2050.
15 seconds.
And then lastly, equity initiatives. So having a focus on improving the academic experience for marginalized communities. And so, overall, it'll be my job to ensure that I'm creating the best academic
5
experience
seconds.
possible for all students.
Thank you, candidate. We will now be moving on to our questions. Yes. If you want to clap. We will now be moving on to 3 questions that have been pre-prepared, and then we'll move on to audience questions. So, for each of these questions, each of you will have 1 minute to respond, and after each question, we'll have a 3-minute open debate where you can ask each other questions or, open debate. So, for our first question, UBC admin brought draft recommendations from the Student Affordability Task Force to the board last month. The VP AUA sits on this task force. What is one aspect within those recommendations that you would push to have included in the final report? We will actually start with Camille this time. And you have 1 minute.
Awesome, thank you so much. As we all know, the Student Affordability Task Force is a group that was created recently to figure out affordability for all students on campus. One particular priority that I think is very interesting and should be the pinnacle of focus is the multi-year tuition framework that is being developed. I think as students, and as your next, hopefully, VPAUA, the strongest priority within there is opposing all tuition increases and making sure that within the multi-year tuition framework that's being developed, we are clear in barring any tuition increases for the next few years while making sure that we are reallocating funds appropriately to support other student services, be that different mental health resources, be that expanding open education or lecture capture technology. But for the main part, we should be making sure that tuition increases within this multi-year tuition framework are being opposed in all capacities for domestic and international students.
Thank you, candidate. Anisha.
My priority from the Student Affordability Task Force would be to address the cost of living challenges. As I mentioned, I will be focusing on root causes, and my platform is built on holistic approaches to student well-being. So to do that, I think we need to take a step back and look at what are some of the factors contributing to inaffordability in Vancouver, and there's a lot of factors to that contribute to students being unable to have access to nutritious and culturally appropriate food, to have childcare, to attend classes. So that's why I will be focusing on that broader umbrella of the specific recommendation of addressing the cost of living challenges.
Thank you so much, candidate. Candidate Anushreya, you have 1 minute.
In reference to the increase, I would say that making it affordable for everyone is a prime concern. And being an international student myself, I believe that it is something that has to be addressed.
and not only relating to just the tuition fees that we pay, but in general that just similar to what we heard in the previous debate, that Vancouver in general is getting very expensive. So we could probably have more financial leverages for students. Yeah.
Thank you, candidate. Dana, you may start.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is an issue that students have been advocating on for years, and I truly, truly appreciate all of the work that's gone into this. And I think it's long, long overdue. I mean, and honestly, I found that the recommendations were not enough. I think we could go much further with a detailed budget on where exactly UBC is going to put funding into helping students directly. And this is an issue that has many different aspects to it, like my fellow candidates have discussed, such as affordable housing, which will be a huge priority for me, especially in UBC's land use plan and Campus Vision 2050, as well as addressing the fact that UBC raised tuition during a pandemic, with over 90% of students opposing it, and without a student affordability plan at the time. And we also have to advocate for open educational resources. Those are an incredibly valuable resource that students can have that can directly lower your costs. So yeah.
Thank you, candidate. Now we will have 3 minutes of open debate regarding that question. Would anyone like to open that debate? Anisha, you have.
Working? Is this on? Yeah, okay. I'd also like to emphasize the need for this, for these recommendations to come with numeric indicators or something that we can actually show that we're following through on our commitments to these recommendations. And I want to go back to emphasizing the specific recommendation to address the cost of living challenges. How can we expect students to show up on campus ready to learn when there's so many other pressures like rent, to, access to food, and that all stems from the high costs of living in Vancouver as well as the relatively low incomes. When we look at, for example, minimum wage, that does not compare to what is needed to live a fulfilled life in Vancouver. Fulfilled was not the word to use there, but a comfortable way without the stresses of not knowing if you're going to have food or shelter. So again, I want to emphasize taking a step back to address the root causes of the inaffordability of Vancouver.
Dana, if you would like to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Anisha. And I think that housing is a huge issue, especially in Vancouver. We're one of the most unaffordable cities to live in the world. And often student housing is the only affordable option, if even that, for students on campus. And we have to address the fact that there are incredibly long wait lists for this housing and address that issue. And I also want to go back to something that I'm personally running on, and that's also in the recommendations from the Student Affordability Task Force, which is better tuition consultation. UBC is going to raise tuition every year. They did it last year, and I will not be surprised if it continues to do so. And so why are they asking students whether or not they support this? Because they're going to do it anyway, frankly. And so we need better tuition consultation so students can have a direct say in where that money is going from tuition increases, instead of asking questions like that, which are, in my opinion, ineffective and actually doesn't make any impact on UBC's ultimate decision. And I do think that that will be a huge priority going forward for me.
Camille, if you would like to respond.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of Dana and Anisha, but I think we've done a lot of consultation when it comes to tuition. We've done it year after year. It's been clear over 90% of students don't want it. So I think it's time for more direct action when we talk about tuition increases and opposing them. In my platform, there are pieces of it that discuss, the organization of student protests and collaborating with other institutions, across the country and other academic institutions across the country to be clear that, this idea of tuition increases and continual tuition increases when our university operates on a $3.1 billion budget already is ridiculous. And, it is our job as student leaders and student representatives and elected representatives to make sure that we are organizing the student body and being clear, in organizing those protests and in organizing, initiatives that work to counteract the moves of the university and what the university wants to do with those increases.
Thank you so much. We will now be moving on to our second question. And each one of you will have, again, 1 minute to respond. The second question is, UBC likes to stonewall on things, particularly around its COVID-19 response. How will you ensure students' concerns are heard and followed through? Please try to be as specific as possible as on how you will ensure that students' concerns are heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an extremely confusing time for students throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and a recent example that I can think of UBC being, very delayed in their communication is the extension of online learning in term 2 of this year. That came 12 days before we were supposed to be back in person, which puts an extreme burden on students, especially international students, to have to, completely rework all of their plans. And so this is a huge issue. So we need to increase communication and increase transparency from UBC, and that needs to happen from student leadership. And we need to be, more communicative with students with our advocacy to UBC on those issues as well, because we do sit on, those discussions. And as a senator, which I'm also running for, I will also be privy to those discussions, and I will ensure that students know exactly what is happening. And that
5 seconds. Thank you, candidate. You can go ahead, candidate.
I do agree with what you stated. Adding on to it, I would just like to say that most of the people are not really aware about different platforms that they can get information from. As a first-year student, I also looked up just Instagram to know about what's actually happening on AMS or to know what's actually going on. The other thing that we actually get to know from are the emails. But most of the emails are way too long, and we don't go through the end to actually read them. So I think the best thing that we can do is create more platforms through which people can actually get to know, or raise awareness to like social media in general.
Thank you, candidate. Anisha.
May you please repeat the question?
Of course. So the question is, UBC likes to stonewall on things, particularly around this COVID-19 response. How will you ensure that students' concerns are heard and followed through?
Yeah, so in this past year as a student senator, I've definitely dealt with this frustration during the pandemic when time and time again we've asked UBC what is going on, and we've been excluded from that conversation. So as much as possible, when we have these opportunities to talk about what's going on, it's reinforcing what are students' concerns and making sure that people don't leave that meeting without knowing those facts, as well as keeping those lines of communication open for students to come forward with their concerns so that we're accurately representing them at the Senate. A great starting place to do this, and where I've started, is keeping in close contact with my undergraduate society,
10 seconds.
And engaging with people there to bring those concerns back to the Senate.
Thank you, candidate. Camille?
Awesome. Yeah. So, to be clear here, when we talk about the institutions within the university where decisions are made, it's not just student representatives that operate in these institutions. When we talk about the Senate or when we talk about these other bodies, there are often deans and professors and various other institutional professionals that serve on these bodies. And so, part of this work is collaboration. Part of this is making sure that, as Anisha had mentioned, working with constituency VP academics and working with constituency leaders to make sure that the concerns and priorities of students are being translated across the board and all around, not just from, senators at large, and not just from the VPA way that these priorities are communicated, but that it's a whole collaborative effort amongst the student body to make sure that we, as students, are united in our priorities, and hopefully, and actually I know, through that, deans and those other representatives on those institutions will respond to that, understand that, and know that, when 60,000 students agree and want something done, that it is their responsibility, along with our own, to make sure that that work gets done.
Thank you. We will now move on to a 3-minute open debate. I would like to remind you candidates of trying to be specific as to how you will ensure student concerns are heard. It is very clear that what students want, but now how do we communicate? How does your role communicate that to the university? Would anyone like to open the debate? Dana.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge thing that I'm running on this year is establishing a formal consultation process and guidelines for the AMS, which we currently do not have. This is long overdue, and this is also one of the recommendations in the Equity Action Plan as well, to ensure that we're consulting, especially marginalized groups, in a way that's equitable and not extractive and not tokenizing, which has often been the case. I believe one of the candidates for president mentioned this, but like the Indigenous community has voiced concerns in extractive consultation. And so really establishing those formal guidelines will help us hear those concerns directly from students, because we are making important decisions here at the AMS, and we're advocating to the university on these important issues. And it's vital that we have this formal process. So that's a huge thing that I will be doing.
Camille?
Yeah, and just to expand on what I had mentioned earlier, I think specifically sort of how to engage with constituencies and with sort of, faculty groups, student groups on campus is that, I myself, if elected, would work to organize a VP Academics Council, which, operates already to some extent in some fashion, where there's consultation with VP Academics and messages are sort of communicated effectively. But I would work to, make sure that those meetings are held frequently, where sort of all the VP Academics within the university, or within student groups within the university are well aware of sort of what priorities are being translated to them, and they could share priorities with one another about what faculty concerns are, what individual faculty concerns are, and then, as I mentioned, making a unison and making a collaborative effort to make sure that those priorities are communicated to all deans and to all professors who represent the institution on these decision-making bodies. And so, that's probably how I would go about making sure that we are making sure student priorities are cross-translated and communicated upwards.
Thank you. Anisha?
Yeah, I want to emphasize that we're getting at the part of, okay, we know what students want, but how do we communicate it now? And one key area of that is utilizing our student senators at the Senate. However, I want to also take a step back and look at the question asked, which was the COVID-19 pandemic, which was something very unprecedented. So the times that we had to talk about student concerns and make them heard were at these meetings. And what was done here was again and again emphasizing what our student concerns, not backing down, not bowing down to the power imbalances in these spaces, and making sure that we're getting the point across when it comes to something like that that is so sudden and, again, don't want to say this word, but unprecedented. Those are the spaces where we need to push and make sure we're
reach a conclusion. Anisha?
I think the most important thing is that we need to create awareness that we're there for the students, as in the students can approach us for problems if they have any. And as stated earlier, I think the best way that more students come up and actually speak is through office hours, A, and B, when you have anonymous forms, like a formal form wherein they can actually write and it's anonymous and we can address through that.
Thank you, Kenneth. We will now be moving on to our third question. And again, you will have 1 minute to respond to this question, and then we'll have a 3-minute open debate. So the question is, the overdose crisis remains an issue. What will you do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials? We will start with Anisha.
Sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. The overdose crisis remains an issue. What will you do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials?
Yeah, I think this goes back to some of the questions asked earlier in the presidential debate of what are the methods of communications that are working that students can connect with the AMS. I think going back to the student engagement survey, the top way students knew about things going on in the AMS was by word of mouth, so really encouraging at council for council members to take that back to their constituencies to let them know what's going on. Second was social media, so making sure that we have a presence on there, and I think it's really fun to be hopping on these trends, you know. I think we're seeing a lot of reels on there. And then thirdly, it was graduate students who got more in the know from newsletters, so I think that is the other form of communication to utilize.
Thank you, candidate. Anusha, you have 1 minute to respond.
Can you repeat the question once?
Yes, the overdose crisis remains an issue. What will you do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials?
I think students could have access to these materials through like the best way is, I think, when you're talking to someone, the word-to-word communication is stated, and just talking to someone is the best way to actually address whatever's going on in your mind. And yeah, that's the only thing
Candidates, I would like to remind you that the question is, what will you do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials? This is not something new. It is something that the AMS has been consistently trying to do. Please try to respond as to what you would do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials. Dana.
Absolutely. It's been 5 years and 10 months since BC declared a public health emergency due to substance-related deaths. 5 years and 10 months, that's almost 6 years. Let that sink in. And 2021 was the deadliest year for substance-related deaths in BC. So this is a crisis that honestly I think our public health officials and UBC is not doing enough to address, because post-secondary students are one of the most at-risk populations for substance use, addiction, and overdose, especially as we're all undergoing a collective traumatic experience due to COVID-19, the climate emergency, so many other factors. And so a huge priority for me, if elected as VP Academic, will be to continue to partner with groups like the Social Justice Center to distribute testing strips, and also lobby UBC to have a permanent substance testing clinic on campus, and also launch a destigmatization campaign on campus as well.
Thank you so much. Emil?
Yeah, so thank you, Dana, for reading off the statistics. I think it is appalling to see how incredible the emergency is in regards to our overdose crisis here. I think particularly one place where we really need to sort of focus a lot of our efforts. Well, two. I think one is making sure that naloxone training is something that we're supporting, making sure that students across campus are supporting and obtaining. If that's organizing naloxone training workshops on a monthly basis so that people are aware of that, or destigmatizing, conversations around drugs by having, informal sessions through which students who may feel at risk, or who participate, or who have addictions are able to sort of be present in, and while partnering with different organizations who are able to facilitate those discussions to sort of work to reduce the stigma around that.
15 seconds.
Beyond that as well, I think again I go back to this idea of working with constituencies, because I think collaboration across the board amongst students is vital. I think make sure constituencies have the resources they need to organize naloxone training events within their own groups, and as well to make sure that they have the ability to organize these type of destigmatizing conversations as well.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move on to a 3-minute open debate regarding that question. Would anyone like to start the debate? Dana.
I'd like to highlight something that some other student leaders on campus pointed out not too long ago, of a particular poster posted in UBC residences, just extremely stigmatizing around marijuana use on campus. And I think that's a horrible, horrible way to address substance use on campus. We really should be working on awareness and safe use, instead of stigmatizing users, and an abstinence campaign which has proven over and over again not to work. And also there's a clause in the year-round residence contract for students on campus that if you are a involved in illegal drug use, or if someone around you is involved in illegal drug use, you can be evicted from your residence and the authorities can be called on you, which is a horrible, horrible policy, especially for minority groups and marginalized folks who already have extreme difficulties with police. Again, just a horrible policy all around. So it's about time that as student leaders we address this and we lobby UBC for a destigmatization campaign and safer use on campus.
Thank you, candidate. Anisha.
Could you please repeat the overall question?
Yeah. So the overdose crisis remains an issue. What will you do to ensure students have access to drug testing materials?
Yeah, going back to my earlier response was with the assumption that those materials have been obtained and the AMS has already been doing that, and I hope to continue that with the points that have also been raised about destigmatizing asking for help and needing to ensure you're getting through this process safely. And I think it can be overwhelming to go to a training session where when you're going to a training session like this, there might be the assumption that this is something that person could be partaking in, or just like picking up tumbling on my words. I just want to also bring it back that having access, it could be similar to how we've been distributing masks so that people can come in and take them as they please, so that we can move away. Sorry, it's the end of the day and words are hard right now. I'm going to close there. Thank you.
Camille? Yeah, while I think, attending...
You have 20 seconds.
Yeah, while attending trainings might be overwhelming, I think there's still an importance to that. I think there's an importance to understanding, prevention. While I think it's also safe usage is really important in that, and making sure that, when participating in these workshops, we're discussing safe usage and we're discussing, how to make sure that, you're able to sort of live and cope with the circumstances that you're presented with. But I think, trainings like this are valuable. I think they provide insights into how to, be safe and how to, prevent it and how to save lives when needed.
Thank you so much. We will now be moving on to audience questions. For each of these questions, you will have 30 seconds to respond, and then we will have 2 minutes of open debate after each question. So for the first question, we will start with Anisha. What are you planning to do to support the Black community on campus? You have 30 seconds to respond. Please pick up the microphone. Yep.
I think the best way you can support even a minority community is by a club. The other thing that you could do here is that engage everyone together and not make them feel like they're a minority community in general.
15 seconds.
This can be done by having multicultural events by which they never feel like they're a minority and have to be represented in a different way.
Thank you. Anisha.
Yeah, I think an important part of addressing this is relationship building, and knowing that you can't just strike up a conversation and say, hey, tell me what you want, but relationships take time to build, and you need to build that trust in order for people to trust and openly share what their needs are.
Thank you, candidate. Camille, you're next.
Yeah, this is a huge part of my platform. I think one of the most important things we can do here is hold true to the recommendations put forward by the Black Student Caucus to the Board of Governors earlier this year, which includes, establishing further scholarships for continuing Black students, hiring more than, 10 to 15 Black profs and administrators by establishing a hiring committee of Black individuals. I think creating, a unique Black student space on campus, making sure that the Inclusion Action Plan has an implementation committee that's been created. And I think overall making sure that we are having effective and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Camille. And it's currently Black History Month, but we should be supporting and uplifting Black students year-round. This is not just a one-time thing, and I think especially for me, it's ensuring that the AMS is internally equitable and that we're
15
representative of these marginalized groups, which I would argue that we currently are not. And so I would love to speak more about this when I have more time, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will now open a 2-minute open debate. Responding to that question, please try to be brief as we have limited time and 4 candidates. Would anyone like to open that debate? Dana.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I would like to highlight is that as AMS student leaders, we are currently not mandated to be trained in anti-racism, anti-oppression, or sexual violence education, which I think are all essential trainings that we should receive as leaders that are directly communicating with students and advocating for students, and also directly dealing with these kinds of issues. I mean, I-18 was brought up in the presidential debate, which I've had a direct role in revising that policy, and any AMS member can form a complaint in that policy with regards to bullying, harassment, and discrimination on campus. And people like the president, for example, can adjudicate those cases, but currently they don't have that training. So that's a huge priority for me going forward.
Yeah, you know, none of us on the stage right now belong to the Black community on campus, and so, you know, I think it's very important that we hold true to what Black students have already told us that they need. It's important that we are listening and effectively implementing the things that are required. You know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, it's really important, partly to make sure that we are, you know, striking up effective hiring committees that are responsible for making sure our uni is reflective of the population out there. You know, one thing I didn't mention was effective curriculum reform that keeps into mind systemic discrimination and racism that has occurred, you know, historically, and making sure that our degrees and our programs and our courses are well aware of this. You can check out more information on what that would look like on my website at votemeal.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other candidates like to respond? Anisha, you have 20 seconds.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that when there are things put forward from these communities that have taken the time to put their requests forward, we need to follow through and support that, and to not only constantly be asking these marginalized groups what they want, but making sure that we're building relationships so that those can last over the long term, as there's often turnover year after year with the AMS. So how can you look at building those relationships to feel safe now and for the future?
Thank you so much. We are now going to be moving on to our second audience question. And again, each one of you will have 30 seconds to respond. The question is, comment on UBC's endowment approach and whether there is a need to push for divestment. If so, how would the VP AUA candidate go about in achieving that? Dana.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in a climate emergency, and it's about time that UBC put their money where their mouth is with regarding to the climate action plan. They've endorsed the climate action plan, have committed to it, but according to articles from the UBC, in fact, they've said that they've invested tens of millions of dollars into climate operations and research, but they did not provide further details, and the UBC received no response from the President's office on this. There needs to be more transparency with where finances are going regarding climate initiatives, and the burden should not be placed on students to have to pay for that. That should be coming from the university.
Thank you. Anusha?
I think in general, it is important for the university to be transparent in their operations, just to tell about, just for an example, we had an increase in the tuition fees, to just say why it has been increased, and just be open about the reason for the increase or the reason for where the finances are actually going.
15 seconds. Perfect. Thank you so much. Anisha?
May you repeat the question?
Yes. Comment on UBC's endowment approach and whether there needs to be a push for divestment. If so, how will the VP AUA candidate go about achieving that?
Yeah, I think the earlier candidates put it well, especially Dana. UBC, put your money where your mouth is, and holding the university accountable comes from these conversations of the VPAUA acting as
15 seconds.
as a funnel for student voices, so really leveraging those meetings with UBC executives to relay the point of follow through with your word.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow candidates. I think it's important that the VPAUA, however, does participate in effective collaboration with other student representatives on these academic institutions. If that's the Senate, if that's the Board of Governors, making sure that there's a unified message across the board when it comes to this idea of de-investment, sorry, and making sure that we are clear as a unified message that that we are divesting from companies that aren't fully engaged within climate action and climate change incentives. So,
Thank you so much. We will now move on to a 2-minute open debate. Would anyone like to open that debate? Yes, Dana.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to highlight Campus Vision 2050 because this can be a huge way that we can advocate for sustainable land use in the next 30 years. And also ensuring that Indigenous, Black, and people of color voices and concerns are central to climate advocacy at UBC, especially Indigenous peoples here, because often the burden is placed on them as they are seeing their traditional hunting, fishing rights completely eroded from pollution and capital development, and it's time that UBC invested in community initiatives, especially Indigenous ones, as they are stewards of this land.
Thank you. Camille?
yeah, I think it's important that in addition to this investment from companies that are, participating in wrong actions in regards to climate change, I think it's important that we expand, some of our research incentives and initiatives that are in regard to climate change. I think it's time we implement, more intensive research bursaries for professors and undergraduate students and graduate students that are participating in research related to climate change, and create an intellectual hub for climate change, making UBC that intellectual hub, where we're able to communicate the effective information outwards, and we're able to conduct the right research to determine, how else we can help to support preventing climate change.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to respond? We have about 30 seconds left. Thank you. We will be moving now to our last audience question of the night, and that is, in a diverse community such as the UBC student community, how do the candidates determine the values and interests of students, especially in regards to speaking out on and engaging on issues such as human rights, such as the AMS Council motion on Hong Kong last year? I'll rephrase it in a shorter manner. Essentially, how do you define which issues are you going to bring up and fight for in a very diverse community such as UBC? We will start with Camille.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question. I think, one of the most important ways that we can do that is through, partly through the academic experience survey that goes out, but I also think, through other methods of effective consultation, which, as mentioned earlier in the earlier debates, involves, making sure we pay the people that we are consulting with. I think it's very heavy conversations, very heavy topics to be engaging on and engaging with when we talk about human rights and individual experiences, and so it's important that, through any consultation forms that we determine with students, that we're making sure that they're compensated effectively, and that then those issues that we get from those consultations are translated upwards through collaboration.
Thank you. Anisha?
Sorry, may you repeat the question?
Yes. In a diverse community such as UBC, how do candidates determine the value and interests of students, especially in regards to speaking out on and engaging on issues such as human rights? A simple rephrase of the question is, in a community as diverse as UBC, how do you define what issues you fight for for students, and which issues you bring up? This particular question mentions the AMS Council motion on Hong Kong last year.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to human rights, if we're choosing to make a statement on something that is happening, we also need to take a look at, the whole world, what is happening. Often there are stories that get left behind because they come from marginalized groups or places in the world that we just don't hold as much value. So I think collectively, the executives council can have some accountability and taking
3 seconds.
a look at what is happening around the world.
That is time. Thank you, candidate. Anushreya?
Being a business student, I think the first thing that the worst way we actually approach to an issue is by checking how much impact it has. So I think the best way to see such issues would be to see which issue has more impact, and by addressing it one by one, from the highest to the lowest
15
priority.
seconds.
And this can basically be done by approaching the appropriate bodies who can actually help us with tackling the issues in general.
Thank you. Dana?
Yeah, absolutely. As an ethnic Uyghur, I completely empathize with those in Hong Kong currently, and in the end, it's all about human rights. We should not be, picking and choosing which issues we stand for, and often it's seen as political, and it really should be, because it's about human rights. And recently, the AMS released a statement on what's happening in Ukraine, which I completely support. But we also have to stand with Palestinians and those in Hong Kong, with Uyghurs, with indigenous peoples. We cannot pick and choose, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, candidates. We will now be moving on to 2 minutes of open debate. I would like to point out, candidates, that this question is looking for how would you define what you bring onto as an issue and what you engage with within the AMS Council or within your role. How do you define if an issue such as the Hong Kong issue is something that you bring to the table or not? And that could be with any issue. Come in.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think, Dana's right when she says all human rights are human rights, and that, the AMS and the VPAUA should take a strong stand in that and recognizing that. But I think in sort of understanding, what issues that the VPAUA needs to prioritize, I think a lot of that is done through effective and efficient student consultation, whether that be, through the different surveys that are produced by the AMS and by the VPAUA's office, whether that be the academic experience survey, whether that be, a new survey identifying the issues that are truly important to students. I think even going beyond surveys, it's about having informal and formal conversations with students across the board, whether that be through, coffee sessions with student populations, whether that be through, more effective town halls where students are able to highlight the issues that matter to them, and really getting a wide breadth and wide knowledge of what matters most to students, and then making sure that we sort of understand where the majority of student interests lie, and making sure that we're still understanding that, the interests that don't follow the majority are still our interests that we advocate for.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, who would like to, I just realized this is open debate and not, my brain is a little fried. Dana, you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth addressing that these are very complex issues as well, and there will be no one true and tried and true strategy to addressing it. But I think also it's important to follow international standards as well. Canada recently declared a genocide happening in China regarding the Uyghurs, but the AMS hasn't said anything about it, and I find that quite disappointing. We also haven't released a statement on what's happening in Palestine. These are all incredibly important issues, as well as Ukraine, as well as Hong Kong. And like I said, we should be following international standards, and we shouldn't be picking and choosing.
Anushreya, did you want to respond to that? I'm sorry, did you have your hand up or?
Just adding on to it, I just wanted to say that it is important to prioritize, and I think unless we don't see, because at one particular time you can't really tackle all issues, right? So we have to see what has more impact, what needs to be prioritized first, and just get over with things one by one.
Camille, you have 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think just in addition to that consultatory process, I think it's also important that when we talk about resolutions to a lot of these issues that we're prioritizing, that we also talk to the groups on campus that are directly related to those issues. When we talk about the Ukrainian conflict, we talk to Ukrainian students on campus to figure out the most effective forms of advocacy. When we talk about Palestine, we talk to Palestinian students, etc.
Thank you so much. We will now be moving on to 1 minute closing statements from each of you. We'll start with Dana. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
I started my opening statement. Do I also close?
Yes.
Okay, Thank you all so much again for being here today. I truly appreciate the time and the energy you've devoted to being here and listening to everything that we stand for. And I'm honored to share the stage with such amazing individuals. You all inspire me to be better, to be a better leader and to be a better person. However, at the end of the day, I do think I'm the right candidate for the job. Over the past year, I've been working at the AMS in policy, strategy, and governance, revising our sexual violence policy, revising our respectful workplace and community policy. And so I have that strong institutional knowledge that is required to do the job. But at the same time, I have a strong passion for grassroots organizing and equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm the first ever diversity and equity coordinator at UBC Improv, which I am honored to say. And so that is something that I will bring to all of my advocacy efforts. And you can learn more at votedana.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Anisha?
Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm a student just like you, and I would like to say that I want to be a motivation for people who want to get out of their shell and try to learn new things. So that is why I'm here today. I think like the previous VP, I did talk to her, and that was one thing that really motivated me that I can do it. And seeing me, I wish that others could also see that they can do it as well. I don't want anyone else that I go up to just ask me what AMS is. I want everyone to actually know what it is and approach it as a way to actually help them as well in their daily life whenever they want any issue or any grievance to be addressed in general.
15 seconds.
I'm approachable, I'm transparent, I'm open. So, yeah.
Thank you, candidates. Anisha.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming out, and thank you to the candidates. It's not an easy thing to do to go through these elections. I also want to apologize for my inarticulation after our third question. In full transparency, substance abuse is a triggering topic, and I can definitely say this was not my best performance, so I do encourage you to approach me throughout this campaigning period to learn more about my platform, and if you have any questions. I also want to emphasize this role is academic and university affairs. This is the AMS liaisoning with the university, not internal structures within the AMS, and I am the right candidate for that with my past 2 years experience on the Senate.
Thank you. Camille?
Yeah, as well, thank you everybody for coming out today. It's been really awesome to be able to share stage. As Dan mentioned, you're such incredible candidates, some that I've worked with, some who I have the pleasure of knowing now. I think at the end of the day, there's a unique advantage with sort of being an AMS counselor, which I've had the privilege of serving as for the last year. And that's sort of being intimately involved with the work that the VP does by serving on the various committees that are involved with that. As an AMS counselor, I serve on the advocacy committee, and which allows me to sort of have intimate understanding of the work that the VP conducts, and as well, just as a member of council at large, you're sort of able to understand the full goals and the full breadth of what it takes to be in that role, and what it takes to, be in that role effectively. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to learn from the current VP and understand, where student priorities are and where they will be.
15 seconds.
And so please remember to vote for me when the time comes, and you can learn more about my platform at votecamille.com. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, candidates. We will now have a 5-minute break to transition between this debate and our last debate of the night, which is VP administration. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for this debate. And I will see all of you in about 5 minutes. Hello everyone, we are going to have the raffle draw thing.
If you got a raffle ticket earlier, do you mind taking it out? I'm gonna draw the ticket now. We will add that to Wednesday then, it's okay.
We will do a raffle ticket Wednesday, unless someone here does have their raffle ticket. Okay. Ben Du, are you here? Awesome, can you please come on?
Yeah, whatever you like.
As long as it's close to my microphone.
Yeah. Here, I'll sit on.
Oh, I don't do that. With the black skirt and white like sweater, she was the one that organized. She was like standing up there and organizing.
Hello everyone, we will be starting the debate, so if you're here for the VP Administration debate, please take a seat. We will be starting the debate shortly. Our candidate is seated and ready. One more time, we will be starting the debate, so if everyone could please take a seat. For this debate, we will do things a little bit differently, as we will not have an open debate session, since our candidate is running unopposed. We instead will have 1 minute for any follow-up questions the audience may have. So if you do have follow-up questions for anything that the candidate says, please raise your hand, stand up, and I will call on you if that is the case. And one more time, please take a seat. We will be starting the debate. Awesome, thank you so much. As with all other debates, we will start with a 1 minute opening statement. So whenever you're ready.
Check, hello. There you go. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ben, and for the past year I've had the pleasure of serving as our Associate VP of Administration, and the year prior as our Vice Chair of the Operations Committee. Over the past 25 months, the AMS and our subsidiaries, our clubs, our undergraduate societies, our resource groups, and various other organizations on campus have been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, there have been times where we have shown how resilient we can be. We've seen the community come together at Clubs Day 2 weeks ago, events restarting in the Nest with the restrictions easing, and a once again vibrant Hatch Art Gallery. The insights I've acquired over the past 2 years have equipped me with the operational understanding to know what needs to change and how to change it. My commitments over the next year will focus on empowering the resiliency that is getting us through COVID-19 and growing beyond the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic once and for all.
Thank you. Now we will be moving on to our first question. You will have 1 minute to respond and then 1 minute to answer any follow-up questions the audience may have. So our first question is, how will you support the Hatch Art Gallery this year following issues with communication and hiring last year?
Okay, with the Heart Chat Gallery, it starts with early accelerated hiring. The hiring for this academic year, although the current Hatchart Gallery directors have done a tremendous job and have completely done a 180 in terms of the momentum of the Hatchart Gallery over the past few months, especially with the recent student exhibition and more to come in the coming months. It starts with accelerated hiring over the summer. We have extremely talented students who have curated art exhibitions in the past, but they need the integral preparation period over the summer months to plan the exhibitions that will occur throughout the academic year. So we will start in the summer with a strong hiring campaign and enter the academic year with exhibitions right from September all the way through until April of 2023.
Thank you so much. Are there any follow-up questions from the audience? Yes. Would you like to?
Sorry, can you speak specifically on communication rather than just hiring?
Certainly. Communication will be conducted, well, social media is the first that comes to mind. So from the AMS's Instagram, Facebook pages, as well as through physical means. So for example, advertisements in the AMS Nest through our TV screens or promotional content displayed throughout the various positions in the AMS Nest. It will also be done through the current Hatchart Gallery directors. They have experienced a lot of lessons learned throughout COVID-19, how to operate a Hatchart Gallery exhibition throughout the Omicron variant, and they have the knowledge necessary to transition the next Hatchart Gallery teams in effectively so that we can go into the next academic year with the momentum necessary to ensure that all students can access and enjoy the space.
Thank you, candidates. Our next question is, previous VP admins invested a lot of time and money into the new Interactive Sustainability Center. How will you ensure the space is used and justifies its cost?
The Interactive Sustainability Center, I understand, has experienced some criticism from counselors in the past. The discussion is not now on whether it is to build or to fund the Interactive Sustainability Center, but rather how do we maximize its potential? And it starts with organizations like Climate Hub and Climate Justice at UBC, as well as our sustainability-oriented clubs at the AMS. It's up to them to ensure that they have the space necessary to promote their advocacy and operational efforts to promote sociocultural and environmental sustainability at UBC. It is the job of the VP admin to ensure that there are no operational barriers for those groups to conduct their business. And so the Interactive Sustainability Center will serve as a physical and effective vehicle in terms of accelerating and promoting the efforts of our sustainability groups on campus.
Are there any follow-up questions from the audience? Yes.
Sorry, that makes a lot of sense. I think my question is, this project spent thousands of dollars on furniture, and every time I walk by it, it's closed. So how are you going to justify that cost to students if, you know, it's not open to a lot of people and seems to not be being used at the moment?
The physical position of the Interactive Sustainability Center in this building is unfortunately not the most optimum in terms of natural foot traffic. And so our focus will be directed towards targeted advertisements and promotional content to get people to go to the space. That is what we will focus on, and it will be done through, again, social media, through our Associate Vice President of Administration, through our Sustainability Projects Coordinator, and also it will be done through social media in terms of featuring the elements that the ISC can provide to the student community. From the outward-facing dashboard that presents the sustainability-related metrics of the student nest, all the way towards a waste hub in terms of recycling of batteries and stationery and styrofoam.
Thank you, candidates. We will now be moving on to a third question, which is, according to this year's student, oh, sorry, was there a follow-up question? Yes.
Yeah, regarding the accessibility of the space, would it be possible for the Interactive Sustainability Center to be more of an open access room? Because yeah, with all the infrastructure that it is aiming to provide, like all the recycling bins, it would, I think, be especially beneficial if people could access it anytime rather than it being something that has to be booked, which adds a task in people's advocates already have such filled capacity. It's like another task to try to book a space instead of it just having that flexibility.
You're correct. It's currently the ISC is primarily a bookable space rather than an open access space for anybody to use at any time. I am more than happy to entertain an idea or to have a trial period at the very least where there are office hours, for example, of the space so that people can access it without booking the space. I completely agree with you that there has to be as low of a barrier as possible, especially for these groups who are who are conducting extremely important work towards sustainability advocacy in the student community. So more than happy to create some sort of trial period and say that is successful, we will continue with that kind of open access space in the future. Yeah.
So moving on to our third question. According to this year's student engagement survey, 53% of students found it difficult to find a place to sit in the nest. How will you increase the number of seating spaces in the nest?
It's a great question, and it's a great statistic as well. Study spaces seem to be the most sought after feature in the AMS Nest, also because of how central we are. I've had discussions already with our project manager, Michael Kingsmill, and we are already starting to entertain ideas about converting some of our pocket lounges in the second and third floors to more accessible study spaces. So furniture such as couches and low-level tables such as these here are not exactly efficient in terms of students who want to study on a surface to put all their papers and their computers. So we're going to do a trial period on converting these pocket lounges to more of the conventional study spaces we see in the nest.
15 seconds.
With COVID-19, with hopefully us seeing the light at the end of the tunnel soon, the spacing between chairs in our current study spaces will also be decreased, fortunately. So that will create some more space for students to study as well.
Are there any follow-up questions? Would you like to come up here and speak into the microphone? Oh, it's a separate question? Yes. Are there any follow-up questions to this particular question that the candidate just answered? Awesome. So we will be moving on to our audience questions. For these questions, you have 30 seconds to respond, and then we will have another minute for any follow-up questions that might arise. So the first question is, how will you address club's ongoing issues with the AMS room booking system?
The room booking system has experienced significant improvements over the past year with somebody in the role now who has direct access to the VP administration's office, as well as increased communication with AMS clubs. It starts with club executive orientations in terms of making sure executives know how to book rooms in the nest. And it starts there, and then once executives know how to book rooms in the nest, we will start looking towards the actual process of booking rooms so that we can get feedback from club executives about what needs to change with the booking process, because it isn't perfect, but it's significantly better than how it used to be.
Are there any follow-up questions to the candidate? If there are none, I will be moving on to our next audience question, which is, the VP admin is the only uncontested AMS exec race. Why do you think that is the case as someone who was part of the current VP admin's team, and what are you going to do to encourage students to run in the future?
It's an interesting question for the VP admin race, because in a way, and you can interpret it how it is, but in a way, it means we didn't frustrate clubs enough for them to think about themselves coming into the AMS to make change. However, uncontested races are never more favorable than contested races. And so it starts with having more personable conversations with club executives, with community members and partners at UBC. It starts with making sure that people know about the administration role and the integral responsibility that it plays in terms of student life at UBC and sustainability efforts on campus.
Thank you, candidates. Are there any follow-up questions? Seeing there are none, I will be moving on to our third audience question. How will the VP admin office, I'm sorry, How will the VP admin's office participate in the review of policy I-17 and what will they do to implement it?
Policy reviews start with meaningful consultation, which means taking feedback as advice in our decision making and starting these consultation efforts in advance of making key decisions with policy development. After the consultation period, it starts with ensuring that those groups that have been consulted with continue to play an integral role throughout the entire process of this policy revision. It also, and it doesn't stop when we finish the policy revision, it also means communicating those changes in a clear and accessible manner to the student community and also to club executives so that those who need to be held accountable and those who want to refer to the policy can do so effectively.
Canada, as a reminder, the policy I-17 is one on the sexual violence policy, and this Wednesday it is going to go towards council. Would you like to further respond to that question?
Can you repeat your clarification?
So policy I-17 is a sexual violence policy, and this Wednesday it is going to go to council to be discussed. Could you please respond in specific about this particular policy and not general policies the AMS intends to include in its policy?
Well, we do have to make sure that, especially with policy I-17, that it is not a rushed process. There shouldn't be a target completion that is put for the project to continue. Parties such as SASC and SV Pro and other community partners that are relevant to this policy should be happy with the policy revision, and it is until only then that the policy revision is final. And so, of course, council has to be informed with these policy revisions as well, but it should never be a rushed process, and all parties and all stakeholders relevant to this policy should be communicated with and should be satisfied as well.
Thank you, candidate. Are there any other questions from the audience? One last question. Clubs say that they have trouble finding storage space in the nest. How would you address this issue?
Increasing storage space in the nest is one of the cornerstones of my platform. Time and time again, I have also experienced the headache that comes with finding more storage in the nest. We have a storage problem in the nest right now, currently. It starts with building vertically, not just horizontally. So in our club offices, I mean, if you just look around throughout the windows in our club rooms, a lot of clubs are putting their equipment sideways instead of on shelves. And so we will start by investing in shelving units so that clubs can put their equipment and their materials in an efficient way so that there also is more space for clubs to conduct club meetings in their rooms. These rooms are not primarily storage rooms, but unfortunately they're being treated as such. And our focus in the next academic year will be towards investing in shelving units and putting in the infrastructure such as chairs and tables necessary so that clubs have a reliable space to operate out of those rooms.
Thank you, candidate. We will now be moving on to your 1-minute closing statement, and you may start.
Okay. I want to highlight that the information I've shared today represents a preview of my platform. Prior to today, like many, I've been advised by the AMS Elections Committee not to enter any consultation meetings prior to the campaigning period, which means I've not had the sufficient time to engage with the relevant stakeholders of the VP administration's portfolio in meaningful consultation. Today, and over the next couple of days, I will be entering meetings with community members with an open mind to add, confirm, and revise my platform, which will officially launch later this week. However, one thing is for sure. This next year will be centered around not only recovering, but effectively growing beyond the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic together. I'd like to thank the UByssey and the Elections Committee and everyone else for this opportunity to engage with you all today. And I look forward to speaking more about the topics discussed today at the Great Debate on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And with this debate, we conclude our debates for today. Please join us on Wednesday in the Great Hall in the Nest at 6:30 p.m. for the VP External, VP Finance, Board of Governors, and Senate candidate debates. Thank you all for attending today. I will hopefully see you on Wednesday.
So no drums. Two more to go. Actually, it wasn't one now. It was like and tomorrow,
That was